Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, today I'm going to be reviewing this 110 scale. I'm going to use air quotes there because this is really more like 112 scale. Brushless RC car or truggy by DEERC. This is the 200E. Now, if this looks familiar, this is a PX Toys rebranded car like the Piranha, or DEERC has another one called the 9206E, which is also just like this, except for those are brushed with, I believe they had 540, I think it was a 540 brush motor. It could have been a 550 in those. This is using a smaller 2440 brushless motor, as you guys can see inside there. And otherwise, it's just like those other cars. It just has that brushless system in it. So let's see how this does it, because they advertise this at 35 miles per hour or 60 kilometers per hour. Now, I seriously doubt we're going to get that speed out of this guy. It's only a 25 amp ESC, so I would not try to go 3S. You're probably going to smoke it if you do. But I did do, on my Piranha, which is again the same vehicle, I did a brushless upgrade on that. PX Toys makes a bunch of these. There's a Jeep, depends on basically what body they put on it. And I got, I didn't do a speed test, but it was probably it wasn't much quicker on a 3300 kV. Now again, this is a 2440, it's a smaller size brushless, but they don't actually tell you the kV on this. So if you look at the Q&A down at the bottom of the Amazon listing, one person said it was 2800 kV, another person said it was 2200 kV. I don't know if they were just guessing or what, because there's nothing in the listing about this guy in terms of the kV. So unless they change the gearing ratio in here, which I highly doubt they did, I would not expect to get anywhere near that top speed. Now, if you want to see the table review for this, what all comes with this, be sure to stick around to the end of the video. I filmed the table review with the anticipation of putting it first, but people, most people want to see the car go. So I decided to stick at the end because you want to see that this does come with two bodies. This purple one I'm going to go with, it also comes with like an orange flame looking orange colored body. So you get two bodies, you get two batteries. It has a bunch of accessories. You get spare pinion gear, spare spur gear, some turnbuckles. You get a bunch of spare stuff with this. So be sure to stick around to the end so you can see what all comes with this. You can see it's got some LED lights in the front. A little bit different design than I believe the Piranha had, but again, this is essentially the same vehicle as that. So it does have these shocks which look like they're oil filled, and even the listing says it is, but these are not. Now these can hold oil though, and I filled up the oil in the other ones I have, like the Piranha. So I would highly recommend adding oil to this. You can even see on this one the little rubber plunger it looks like in there. I think some O-rings came out. They need to be shoved back up in there, because I took off the one of the shocks and looked in there, and there's just grease inside of it, which is okay, but you can see they're really bouncy. So I'll put a picture of that. I also will put it in the table review as well, if I remember when I discussed the shocks, to show you guys see that it's just grease in there. But you can definitely add oil to them, and I highly recommend you do. I'm just going to give you guys a stock experience today with how they are. But the listing mentioned oil. These do not have oil in them, but they certainly can hold them. Just add oil. That's an absolute must with this car, because those shocks are made to have oil put in them. All right, guys, let's go ahead. That's enough blabbing. Let's get it down on the ground. Like I said, if you want to stick around to the end, you can see what all comes with this in the actual unboxing. And well, the overview more. I didn't really do an unboxing on my table where I just, I go over all the stuff that comes with the car. All right, let's go ahead and get it on the ground. Get this guy going. Again, it's four-wheel drive. All metal dog bones on there. So I'm going to drive it here for a moment to get an idea. I don't have my GPS reader on here, but I want to get an idea. Is it anywhere near what we think 35? Because I can tell you if it's in that range just from experience driving these cars in the past. So it is pulling to the right, so I need to do some steering trim. And I can tell you right now, that is nowhere near 35 miles an hour. Let's make sure that our steering rate is all the way up, and it is. Let's pull them to the right some more. That looks about similar to the Piranha. Now that Piranha, I put a 3300 kV in, and I feel like this one's going to be nowhere, you know, at the most it might be 3300 kV. Like I said, the people are suggesting it was in the 2000s. I'm thinking that's somewhere around 20 miles an hour. About what I expected. So a little bit quicker than the brushed motor. And a brushless motor is still more efficient, and they have more torque and a little better acceleration, so it's still a nice upgrade. Just don't expect any crazy fast speeds. So that listing, maybe they were able to get it on 3S, but on a 25 amp ESC, I would not try a 3S battery. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the car in the back, and we'll do a drive review where I can take it off road and do some jumping. So we'll be right back, guys, and we'll take it off road. Alright guys, let's go ahead and drive it around the backyard here. This is my favorite spot. Unfortunately, it's sort of next to the cemetery, but I had this rock lane and an area down here where I can do some jumps. I like to take it off road, these cars, to see how they do. So let's throw it down here. Again, we can see it's a bit bouncy because, as I said, they don't have oil in them, but just make sure you add oil to these shocks. If you don't have a lightweight oil, so I've seen people use transmission fluid from cars. That'll work. Otherwise, I'd recommend just go to your local hobby shop and get yourself some, you know, some shock oil. And there's different weights, but it's not that big of a deal. But this is nowhere near 35 miles an hour. It looks a little quicker here on this rock lane. Again, I don't know if maybe they use 3S on this, but on that 25 amp ESC, I don't know. I think you're gonna probably smoke it. Maybe my fear. But again, it's not uncommon. I'm not defending this in any way, shape, or form, but it's not uncommon for all these RC cars on either Amazon or even Banggood, every place you see them, these smaller, less known brands, to exaggerate their speeds. They're always way faster on their speeds than, you know, 9 out of 10 times the speed's going to be way inflated. So just keep that in mind. But you know, I've driven these before, this particular model, so I have an idea right offhand what it's going to do. And with my previous experience with the 3300 kV in it, I already knew what this was probably going to do. And I say this was probably going to be a hair slower because I don't think that little brushed motor has quite the same kV on 2S. But I'm happy to see it's doing okay, because that motor being a little smaller, you know, than a standard like 540, 550 size, you know, the brushless system. I forget what that actual reading is for that, but offhand. But this is a 2440. I'm trying to think what the 550 size brush motor equivalent is in brushless size. But anyway, this little motor seems to be doing okay, because sometimes you put a smaller size brushless motor in one of these and it can overheat. Okay, that's not bad. I was going to see how it would do here, and look, it's actually handling this overgrown tall grass. It doesn't get, some people back here don't mow this and some people do. There's sort of a dispute on whose property it is. But anyway, it's not uncommon for my cars to get stuck back there, and this guy, oh nice, it being that it is at 1/10 scale, more like 1/12 scale, it's having no problems handling that grass. The smaller vehicles get stuck in it. Oh nice, rode a wheelie. So the original PX Toys Piranha, which was like the original, the 9200E I think it was called, and I see that's having no problem in that. That's something that if that even unbrushed, that might get stuck there. The brushless has got that extra power. The 9200E, I believe it was, the Piranha, it was listed as 1/12 scale. But some of them had kind of gone up because it's sort of like a larger 1/12 scale, and they want, obviously, hey, this is a 1/10 scale. It's going to make it more desirable to a lot of people. So that's why they allowed them to say that. This is not the only one. The 9206E from DRC also said 1/10 scale. I'm trying to think, the PX Toys or E-Nazi was another brand that rebrands that. I had a Jeep with the exact same body, the same 9200s, 9204 or something, I don't remember. It was a Jeep. E-Nazi rebranded the PX Toys, which they do a lot of, and I believe it was advertised as 1/10 scale. It was just it had a Jeep Wrangler style body on it. So you can put a lot of bodies on this. Keep that in mind. Just realize that it's a smaller 1/10 scale. It's more accurately a 1/12 scale. But it is brushless. You have to worry about upgrading it. You know, this is one of the easier models to upgrade to brushless, as I did on my PX Toys Piranha video. But this is already good to go. You don't have to worry about buying a radio system and a brush. You know, you're going to spend $70 to $100 on the cheapest end on a cheap, Dumbo RC system, and then a cheap Google RC or some brushless system. This is all good to go. But it's really handling, even though we're just using those at the moment friction shocks, it's doing really well with the jumps. So even though it's a bit bouncy, it's not doing bad, because like I said, there is some grease inside of there. If you watched earlier, or if you stuck around for the table review, if you skipped the beginning, I do have a picture I took. It shows the inside of the shock, and it just has some grease in there. So they advertise them as oil fill, but they are not on this particular one. Most of them do come with oil, but they usually are underfilled. The Piranha came with just a smidge of oil in there, and I added more, and obviously the shocks function much better. So if you get this, what I'd recommend you do, take the shocks, make sure that the O-rings, you can see they came off on one of mine. That's not a big deal because right now there's no oil. Those will help seal the shock. Take the shocks all the way off if you can, which obviously is not hard to do. And put I get a paper towel. If you can take the shock all the way apart, that's ideal, but just get that grease wiped out of there. I would clean all that out, then fill it up with oil. Make sure it's assembled properly and those O-rings in there are all in place, and it's going to hold oil just fine. It may leak a little more than a better brand shock, but it will be just fine. You're gonna have much better dampening, and it's gonna help the vehicle handle a little better. But overall, this is working just fine, just as I expected it would. And it's got good power, and the servo is very responsive. And as I show you guys in the table review portion there, it does have a 3-wire servo. So if you wanted to go to your own brushless system, say you have a radio system TXRX and you have a brushless kit laying around and you wanted to slap it in here because maybe you wanted a faster KV or the other ability to go to 3S, then that servo is ready to go. So you don't have to upgrade the servo. And it seems it's really responsive, as you guys see there. It's very quick, and there's not any kind of delay I'm seeing. Very responsive to this system. So I think you're just fine with that servo. But that would be one thing that, if you would do an upgrade to brushless, to your own brushless system, obviously even the cheap Google RC or Surpass Hobby, same ESC, those can handle 3S. So if you wanted to go up to something like that, and then of course you have to replace the radio, you're going to be able to go to 3S. And then on 3S, you're going to step up on the speed. It may not be a ton, because some of it comes down to the gearing ratios on something like this. I don't know if you could get 35 on 3S. You might. But overall, I'm totally happy with this. I mean, the only complaint obviously is going to be that they exaggerated the top speed significantly on this. Oh, flipped them over. And the listing does say they're oil-filled shocks, which again, they are functioning oil-filled shocks. Maybe they're supposed to have oil in them, and PX Toys, who makes this, decided to go cheap and stop adding oil and started putting grease, because grease is a lot cheaper than oil. So it could very well be a deal where they used to add oil to these. I can tell you that 100%. I've owned, this is like the fourth. Well, I have the PX Toys Piranha, the E-Nazi Jeep, then the DRC 9206, and this one. This is the fourth one I've owned of this body. And all the other ones had oil-filled shocks in terms of they had oil. Ooh, that's really handling that well. So it could be the PX Toys decided to skimp, you know, and start going with grease, and of course DRC wouldn't necessarily know that. So, because you can see on their listing it says oil-filled shocks. And that was a big selling point to me whenever I got the Piranha about 4 years ago. The original version of this car was that it had, you know, it had a big 540, I believe they said it was a 540 brush motor at the time, which was nice because brushless kits were more expensive. LEDs, which are cool, but most importantly, the oil-filled shocks were a big deal. That was very uncommon. So I'm going to say it a million times, add oil to these shocks when you get them, it's going to help. But overall, even though it's very bouncy, the shocks are still doing their job. It's just adding a little extra bounce to the car. All right, guys, I really like this, and I love the two bodies. I like the purple. You might like the orange. And as I mentioned at the table review portion here, you do need to, and if you want that spoiler, you have to attach that yourself. Got a lot of dead weeds and stuff tangled in here. All right, guys, that wraps up the driver view for the DEERC 200E brushless system. If you're interested in this, there'll be a purchase link down in the video description. I think it's around $150, which is not bad for this size, being already brushless, ready to run, extra battery, spare parts, extra body. They give you a lot. Plus, if you have a problem, there's no problems returning this to Amazon. DRC is going to reach out. They're very helpful. So it's a very low risk buy. And the price is pretty reasonable in my opinion. All right, guys, that wraps up the driver view. Let's move along now inside. If you want to stick around for the actual table review to see what all comes with it. Otherwise, then thanks for watching if you don't want to watch that, and have a good day, and see you guys later. Today, I'm going to take a look at this RC car from DEERC. This is the 200E four-wheel drive brushless truggy, I guess you could say. It's sort of like a mix between a truck and a buggy, so it looks more like a truggy to me. This is 1/10 scale. Again, it's four-wheel drive, and it has a lot of pretty cool features, and this ought to be a really fun one to drive. Now, this may look sort of familiar. This is a rebranded or modified PX Toys. If you're a subscriber to the channel, you probably have seen a car that looked an awful lot like it, and this is the DRC 9206E. As you guys can see here, it looks an awful lot alike. And basically what they've done is they've taken this truggy, which has a big 550 size brush motor, as you guys can probably see right in here, and they've made it into a brushless system is what they've done. And then it's called the 200E. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the accessories, and then we'll look underneath the hood, so to speak, and then we'll get this car outside for the driver view, which you guys all really want to see. So as you can see, it comes with an extra body, so you get two of these bodies, and you can decide which one you want to use, you know, obviously, and which color scheme you like, or just use one until it gets really damaged and then switch to a new one. So you see we got the purple, and we got this kind of fire orange looking design, and then you get two of the 1800 milliamp hour 2S lipos using the Dean's plug. So there's one of them already in the car, and then there's this one right here. So this one I've got fully charged to do the driver view with, since you're going to tell I've not driven the car yet. And this ought to give it pretty good punch and, you know, pretty good drive time on 1800 milliamp. I don't know if you could go 3S on this. You know, a lot of times it really depends on the amps of the built-in ESC, and this is going to be one of those ESC receiver combos, but you're usually not as rugged or durable. So I would stick with 2S just to be safe. They give you a little pull string bag, and inside of that they give you quite a bit of spare parts, which is really nice, and a wrench and a screwdriver. So I'm going to pour this out, and then you won't be able to see it here on the table behind the car. Let me move the car for a second. I don't have the body clips on the car. That's why it started to lift up like that. But they give you two chargers. That means you can then charge both batteries up the same time, so you can double your run time and not have to go back, you know, and charge the second one after the first one's finished. So now these are slow. These are not going to be very good. They'll get the job done, but you know, as I always recommend, invest in yourself a inexpensive hobby grade charger. You can get them dirt cheap, you know, on Amazon or eBay for, you know, 20, 30 bucks, and you do a much better job, and most importantly, it'll charge it way faster than those. Then they give you, let's make sure I get everything out of here. They give you a pinion gear with a little grub screw in there. I don't know if this is a replacement or a different, you know, amount of teeth. You know, is this a different, like, is there a 15 tooth and a 16? I didn't count how many this is, but they did give you another one of these. It's probably a different size, because, you know, you're not likely to strip out, you know, one of these. Looks like bronze, probably, you know, pinion gear. So I don't think that's a problem. They give you a bag of some body clips and screws, and the little nuts that go inside the wheel hubs. Actually, you know, it drives the wheels. They give you 2 of those, and the little pins that go through it that actually goes through the actual shaft on there, and, so, and a few nuts. They give you, I guess this might be the spur gear. It sort of looks like it's just not quite as large as I thought it'd be. And obviously, this being plastic, this could strip. So they give you another one of those. That's nice. This is stuff you just don't see. If you got this from PX Toys, you're not going to get these spare gears. They give you a brush just for cleaning the car and, you know, getting inside the wheels and, you know, getting the dust off. They give you a wheel wrench. This is mostly for removing the wheels, obviously, but it's a 4-in-1 wrench, so you can, there's other spots on the build where you can use this to get the nuts off. You get your little standard, I call it, little Phillips screwdriver that they give you everything from the cheap toy drones to these RC cars. Somebody makes these by the million, and it's very common. Then they give you some turnbuckles here for, you know, either for the steering or just for holding the, you know, the wheels and stuff, and the suspension and stuff in place. So they give you, you can see there's different sizes, a smaller one here, and then they give you 2 smaller ones and 2 larger ones. So in case these would break, because these are pre-molded, it may look like these screw on, but they're not. So these are going to be susceptible to breaking, especially on a brushless. So it is nice they gave you this so you don't have to then go repair them, but you could always go to your local hobby shop and buy some, and they actually screw on and replace, if you know, and it'd be a lot better if you needed to. But they give you those, so that is nice. Let's take a look at the controller, and then we'll take a look at the car. This is your standard PX Toy style controller. Looks like it takes probably 3 AA batteries. And then you've got your speed and your speed rates here. So this is probably your, it says speed switch. So this should be your speed dual rates. So if you want to set it up to where it can go maximum speed, or if you want to set it down, like if you have a kid maybe who's just learning to drive, you might want to set this lower so they can't reach the top speed, just because it's going to be harder to drive. Then you got your steering trim to trim up the wheels, because all of this is all fully proportional. You have your on and off switch and a light that lets you know it's powered up. And your just typical pistol grip. You got a foam grip, which is nice, so your fingers don't slip. Your throttle and your reverse and your brake. So your real typical controller there. Here's the instruction manual. There's some of the body clips I had sitting on there, and I'm not going to get too much into this. It's got some of your spare parts in there. It's got some exploded view there, so we know how to reassemble it if we do have to take it apart. And then it's just going to be your basic controls and some diagrams here. So pretty basic on the instructions, but it looks like the instruction manual is decently written. So let's go ahead and move this out here. I think the other pin, here it is, body clip. And let's take off the body. I'm going to go with the purple. I like this color. Now, the spoiler does come separate in the packaging, and I went ahead and put it on. There's these little braces that go on here, and then you just attach it with some of the body clips they give you. So make sure that you get it up into the second hole on the bottom of these, and then of course just through the top hole here on the top. If you just put it through the first hole that shows through, it's going to be loose and it wobbles. So make sure you get it through the second hole, and use all 4 on the bottom, 2 on the top, so for a total of 6. Also, before you do that, pull this clear film off. They do tell you that on a sticker on the top of these. If you don't, then you're going to have that film come up and it's going to get caught around this brackets here for the spoiler, and you just want to get that all taken off before you actually put the spoiler on the car and before you drive it, because that film is going to get damaged and come off. And here is the internals of the car. There is your red brushless motor. Now this motor looks smaller than that 550 size, so they went with a little smaller brushless motor than a brushed. You've got passive cooling here. Here is the second LiPo battery. You have some LED lights here in the front, and that comes up and is powered off that ESC receiver combo that's right here. And we see the Dean's plug. It uses a standard 3-wire servo. So if you wanted to upgrade the radio system in this, you could put a regular radio in here, and then you have to have a separate ESC to drive this. But you could do that if you wanted better range or just a more accurate radio system. You could do that, and you'd keep the servo is what I'm getting at. So let's see, we got here. We got metal dog bones on the 4-wheel drive, so that's nice. I can tell there's full ball bearings in this, so you're not going to break these dog bones in a collision or anything like you would the plastic ones. It seems to be a nice composite plastic as well. And just like the 9206 or the PX Toys Piranha, it has these shocks which can be oil filled, but in this instance they are not. They just have some grease inside there. And I'll show you a picture I took. I took these apart to look in here because I didn't feel much. You can see it's very, very bouncy. You can see there's a little grease in there. That helps keep it lubricated, and it'll work better. But I would open these up and put some lightweight oil in there. Go to your hobby shop if you don't have any and get some shock oil for an RC car, because these will function as oil-filled shocks. I filled them up on the Piranha. The Piranha came with a little oil in them. The PX Toys Piranha, which again is the same build as the 9206 and this 200E. But I would add some oil to them because this is really bouncy. Now, for the sake of this review, I'm not going to put any oil in them. I'm going to leave them here just so you guys get the stock experience. But again, put some oil in those. You know, I didn't notice it leak much. I mean, all shocks will leak a little bit, but give it a try and see, because it sure looked like these are the same as the other ones. And I added oil to my Piranha, which I also upgraded that to brushless back in a video a year or so ago. And again, it's just the same car. This just comes brushless and ready to go, so you have to worry about doing any of that stuff. You know, I had some issues with that one where the servo didn't really want to mount well for me in the upgrade, and I ended up breaking, or the servo. And this will be better just getting it ready to go brushless like this, everything ready to go. So yeah, I mean, otherwise this looks like a really cool car. Again, it's not necessarily new in terms of, there's other ones out there in this PX Toys body style that either are brushless or people upgrading brushless like myself. But I like that this one comes ready to go brushless, because I prefer brushless over the brush now, because they've gotten so cheap. There's just no reason to mess with a brushed motor. All right, guys, I think that covers everything with this car. There goes the body, of course. I knew I was going to fall down.
The power of the dark side.